Malik stepped into the bustling office, his heart racing with excitement and a hint of nerves. The fluorescent lights above flickered gently, illuminating the polished floors and the sleek glass walls that defined the corporate landscape. Today was not just another day. It was the day of his presentation, a culmination of weeks spent refining his ideas and rehearsing his delivery. As he walked through the familiar maze of cubicles, he greeted his colleagues with a bright smile, trying to channel the positive energy radiating from within. "Hey Malik, ready for the big show?" called out Sarah, his closest ally in the office. She was leaning against her desk, her curly hair bouncing as she moved. There was an undeniable warmth in her voice, one that made Malik feel a little less anxious. "Yeah, I think so," he replied, forcing a grin despite the fluttering in his stomach. "I just hope Greg doesn't tear me apart like last time." Sarah rolled her eyes, a gesture that Malik appreciated. "Don't let him get to you. You've got great ideas and you know what you're talking about. Just focus on the presentation and you'll be fine." If you're enjoying this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and activate the bell. That way, you won't miss any of our updates. Your support helps us bring you the best content possible. Continuing, Malik nodded, grateful for her encouragement. He continued his journey toward the conference room, trying to drown out the whispers of doubt that crept into his mind. However, the closer he got to the room, the more he felt the weight of his manager's presence looming over him. Greg had a way of making every interaction feel like a battle, and Malik was all too aware of the power dynamics at play. As he entered the conference room, Malik took a deep breath, inhaling the smell of fresh coffee and the faint scent of disinfectant. His colleagues were already seated, their eyes flicking toward him as he set up his laptop. The large screen displayed the title of his presentation, Innovative Strategies for Client Engagement. He had poured his heart into this project, and he wanted to impress not only his colleagues but also Greg, who had a knack for belittling his contributions. "Let's get this started, shall we?" Greg's voice sliced through the air, smooth yet menacing, as he strode into the room. He wore his usual crisp suit, an unwritten rule of authority that made him feel untouchable. Malik felt a chill run down his spine. He forced himself to meet Greg's gaze, though the condescension in the older man's eyes sent a wave of unease through him. "All right, Malik, let's see what you've got," Greg said, almost dismissively, as he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. It was a posture that conveyed his dominance, a silent reminder of the hierarchy that plagued the office. Malik began his presentation, speaking with a passion that he hoped would resonate with everyone in the room. He outlined his ideas clearly, emphasizing innovative approaches that could enhance client interaction and improve overall satisfaction. As he spoke, he could see some of his colleagues nodding in agreement. Their support fueled his confidence, and for a moment he felt invincible. "Interesting concepts, Malik," Greg interrupted, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "But don't you think these ideas are a bit ambitious for our current client base? I mean, we wouldn't want to overwhelm them, right?" Laughter erupted from a couple of Greg's favored colleagues, and Malik's heart sank. He could feel the color drain from his face as he struggled to maintain his composure. "Actually, Greg, I believe that," Malik started, but Greg cut him off again. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We wouldn't want to rock the boat." Greg smirked, his eyes glinting with malice. "We have a good thing going here, so let's stick to what we know. No need for fancy ideas that might, create unnecessary confusion." The laughter continued, and Malik felt the walls closing in on him. He could practically feel the weight of their stares, and his confidence began to waver. He wanted to scream, to lash out at Greg for his blatant disrespect, but he knew better than to give him the satisfaction. Instead, he forced a smile, trying to mask the hurt that twisted in his stomach. "Of course, Greg, I understand the importance of stability," he replied, his voice steady but lacking the enthusiasm it had moments before. He felt like he was shrinking, becoming invisible in a room full of people. The laughter faded, but the sting of Greg's remarks lingered like a bitter aftertaste. As the meeting continued, Malik felt a sense of isolation wash over him. Each time he attempted to present his ideas, Greg would jump in with another jab, each more pointed than the last. Malik's colleagues, who had initially shown interest, seemed to withdraw, their expressions shifting from supportive to uncertain. The atmosphere felt heavy, tainted by the undercurrent of racism disguised as humor, and Malik was left grappling with the reality that he was alone in this fight. After the meeting concluded, Malik hurriedly packed up his belongings, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the conference room. He felt like a deflated balloon, his earlier excitement replaced by a profound sense of defeat. As he stepped into the hallway, he spotted Sarah waiting for him, her brow furrowed with concern. "Hey, how did it go?" she asked, her voice softening as she approached him. Malik sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It was rough. Greg just wouldn't let up. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle the whole time." Sarah's expression hardened. "That's ridiculous. He's just trying to undermine you. You know your stuff, Malik. Don't let him get to you." "I know, but it's hard not to take it personally when he makes those comments," Malik admitted, his voice tinged with frustration. "It's like he's just waiting for me to fail." "That's exactly what he wants," Sarah said firmly. "But you can't give him that power. You've worked too hard for this. Let's go over your presentation again later. We can make it even stronger." Malik hesitated, torn between the desire to stand up for himself and the fear of losing his job. "I just don't know, Sarah. What if I keep failing? What if Greg really is right about me?" "Don't say that," she replied, her tone urgent. "You're more than capable, and you deserve to be heard. Let's strategize. Together, we can make sure you're ready for whatever he throws at you next. You're not alone in this." Malik looked into Sarah's eyes, searching for reassurance. She had always been his rock, but the weight of Greg's belittling words echoed in his mind. The thought of confronting his manager terrified him. "I appreciate it, really, but what if I just keep my head down? I can just get through this until I find something better. Is that what you really want?" Sarah pressed, her gaze unwavering. "To just survive? You have so much potential, Malik. Don't let him dim your shine. Fight back. Show him what you're made of." Malik felt a spark ignite within him. Perhaps Sarah was right. Perhaps he was more than just a target for Greg's cruelty. He took a deep breath, envisioning a future where he could stand tall, unafraid to share his ideas. "Okay, let's do it," he said, a newfound determination in his voice. "Let's work on my presentation." As they began to strategize, Malik felt the weight of his anxieties lift, if only slightly. He was still in the trenches of a battle he never wanted to fight, but with Sarah by his side, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could turn the tide against Greg's oppressive regime and reclaim his voice in the corporate world. Malik leaned against the wall of the break room, his heart racing as he caught snippets of Greg's voice filtering through the thin walls. He had just been filling his coffee cup when he noticed Greg standing in the hallway, engaged in a conversation with Karen, one of the other managers. The moment Malik heard his name, a chill ran down his spine. "Honestly, I can't believe they keep promoting these diversity initiatives," Greg said, his tone dripping with disdain. "They've got Malik acting like he's some sort of star employee. But let's be real. He wouldn't last a day in a real leadership role." Malik's jaw clenched involuntarily. He could feel his hands tighten around the coffee cup, the ceramic digging into his palm. He wished he could confront Greg right then and there, but fear held him back like a vice grip. Instead, he edged closer, straining to catch more of the conversation. "Right? It's like they're trying to tick boxes instead of actually hiring qualified people," Greg continued, chuckling to himself. "I mean, what's next? Letting him lead a team? It's laughable." Karen hesitated, her expression shifting. "Greg, you shouldn't underestimate him. He's got some good ideas, and I think he brings a different perspective to the table." "Oh, please," Greg scoffed. "Different perspective or not, he's just not cut out for this. You'll see. Once the restructuring is done, he'll either drown or be back at the bottom where he belongs." Malik's heart pounded in his chest. The weight of Greg's words pressed heavily on him, igniting a fire of determination deep within. He had always known Greg harbored resentment toward him, but hearing it so openly discussed felt like a slap in the face. He turned away from the conversation, clutching the coffee cup as if it were a lifeline. As he walked back to his desk, Malik felt a mixture of anger and resolve. He had spent too long suppressing his voice, too long allowing Greg to dictate his worth. The time for change had come. He needed to prove not only to Greg but to himself that he was capable of more than the manager gave him credit for. Sitting at his desk, Malik pulled up the company's internal website, searching for any information on the restructuring plans. His mind raced with possibilities as he skimmed through bullet points and projections. The words growth, leadership opportunities, and diversity in management jumped out at him. Maybe this is it, he whispered to himself, a spark igniting in his chest. Maybe this is my chance to turn the tables. He spent the next few hours diving deep into the documents, his focus unwavering. Each page he read fueled his ambition, revealing a pathway of possibilities that he hadn't considered before. "Hey, Malik!" Sarah's voice broke through his concentration. She leaned against the cubicle wall, a curious look on her face. "You look like you're on a mission. What's going on?" Malik looked up, a smile forming at the corners of his mouth. "I think I've found a way to move up in the company. There's a restructuring happening, and I'm going to put myself in the running for a management position." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise and excitement. "That's amazing. You totally deserve it. But you know Greg is going to make this harder for you, right?" Malik nodded, his smile fading slightly. "Yeah, I know. He's been making snide comments, and I overheard him talking about me just now. But I can't let him stop me." "Good. You need to focus on your skills and build your confidence. Have you thought about taking some courses or workshops?" Sarah suggested, her enthusiasm palpable. "Actually, I was thinking about that," Malik replied, a glimmer of hope returning to his spirit. "I could use some additional skills to bolster my resume. It might help me stand out." "Definitely," Sarah encouraged. "There are a ton of online classes out there. I can help you look for some." "Thanks, Sarah. I really appreciate it," Malik said, feeling a warmth spread through him. Having someone in his corner made the daunting task ahead feel manageable. As the days passed, Malik threw himself into his research. He spent late nights poring over online courses on leadership, effective communication, and project management. Each lesson he absorbed filled him with newfound knowledge and confidence. He practiced speaking in front of the mirror, refining his presentation skills and learning to articulate his ideas clearly. Yet, despite his growing determination, Greg's bullying did not subside. In fact, it seemed to escalate. Malik would often find Greg watching him from across the room, a smug expression on his face as he made snide remarks to other employees. "Look at Malik." Thinking he's some sort of corporate superstar, Greg would say, loud enough for Malik to hear, "He's just a pawn in this game. Let's see how long he lasts." Malik gritted his teeth, fighting against the urge to retaliate. He reminded himself of the goal he was working toward and that Greg's words were merely noise, meant to distract him from his purpose. One afternoon, while Malik was engrossed in a project proposal, he felt a shadow loom over his desk. He looked up to find Greg standing there, arms crossed, a smug grin plastered on his face. "Working hard or hardly working, Malik?" Greg sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. Malik took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. "I'm working on a new project proposal that I think could benefit the team." Greg rolled his eyes, feigning interest. "Oh, I'm sure it's just another one of your creative ideas that will go nowhere. You know, not everyone gets a participation trophy in the corporate world." Malik swallowed his anger, choosing to respond thoughtfully. "I believe in my work and the value it can bring. I'm confident that if given the chance, I can prove myself." Greg leaned in closer, his voice low and taunting. "Prove yourself? You think they'll let you lead anything? You're in way over your head, Malik. Just remember that when you're back to square one." As Greg walked away, Malik felt a mixture of anger and determination wash over him. Greg's words were meant to belittle him, but they only served to strengthen his resolve. He was done playing small. He was done allowing Greg to dictate his worth or his future. That evening, as he sat at his desk, Malik opened his laptop and enrolled in a leadership course. His fingers moved swiftly over the keyboard, the decision empowering him. He wouldn't let Greg's bullying define him any longer. Instead, he would rise above it, proving not only to Greg but to himself that he was capable of achieving greatness. With each passing day, Malik felt himself transforming. The late-night classes filled him with knowledge, and the support from Sarah motivated him to push harder. The tension with Greg only fueled his desire to succeed. He was no longer just a target of bullying, he was a man on a mission. As he prepared for the challenges ahead, Malik embraced the fire within him. He was ready to take on whatever came his way, and with each step, he grew more confident that he would emerge victorious. Malik sat at his desk, staring at the email notification flashing at the corner of his computer screen. The subject line read, "Upcoming management position openings." His heart raced as he clicked it open, revealing the details of a restructuring plan that would soon open up several new roles within the company. For a moment, the world around him faded away, and all he could focus on was the opportunity laid out in front of him. This could be his chance to turn the tide against Greg, the man who had made his life a living hell for far too long. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes briefly to envision what it would mean to step into a role of leadership. A voice in the back of his mind whispered doubts, reminding him of the way Greg had belittled him in meetings and the snide comments that had become a regular part of his workday. But there was also a flicker of hope, bright and persistent. This was not only a chance for advancement, it was a chance for justice. "Malik!" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see her approaching his desk with an eager smile. The warmth of her presence instantly lifted his spirits. "Did you see the email? You have to go for it." "I know, but..." Malik hesitated, unsure of how to articulate the whirlwind of emotions that coursed through him. What if Greg finds out? He's already been unbearable lately. I can't shake the feeling he'll do everything he can to sabotage me. Sarah leaned against his desk, her arms crossed in a display of solidarity. "You're more than capable of handling him. You've been preparing for this, Malik. Just think about the skills you've been honing in your night classes. They've made a difference, haven't they?" Malik nodded, recalling the late nights spent poring over textbooks and practice presentations. The knowledge he'd gained had bolstered his confidence, but the thought of confronting Greg's hostility still sent a shiver down his spine. "What if I'm not ready? What if I fail?" "Failure is part of growth," Sarah replied, her eyes sparkling with conviction. "But you won't fail. You've got this. And even if things get tough, I'll be right here to back you up." The thought of having Sarah by his side made Malik feel a little more grounded. She had always believed in him, even when he had doubts about himself. It was that unwavering support that ignited a flicker of determination within him. He took a deep breath, allowing himself to imagine what it would be like to finally take a stand against Greg. Meanwhile, across the office, Greg sat at his desk, hunched over his computer screen. He had received the same email about the management openings and felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. The prospect of Malik ascending the corporate ladder sent waves of paranoia through him. He had spent years establishing his dominance, and the thought of Malik, the very person he had bullied, potentially taking his place felt like a nightmare come to life. Greg's mind raced as he plotted. He knew he had to act fast. The last thing he wanted was for Malik to gain any traction or support from their colleagues. With a scowl etched on his face, he decided to intensify his tactics, thinking that perhaps a stronger show of force would keep Malik in his place. As the days went by, Malik noticed the shift in Greg's behavior. The bullying escalated from subtle jabs to overt hostility. Greg began to make snide comments not just to Malik but in meetings, openly questioning Malik's abilities in front of others. "Are you sure you're up to this, Malik? I mean, maybe you should stick to what you know best," he sneered during a team briefing, his tone dripping with sarcasm. The room fell silent, and Malik felt the heat rise to his cheeks. "I've been working on this project for weeks, Greg," Malik replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The weight of the room pressed down on him, but he refused to let Greg see his fear. "I'm confident in my contributions. Confidence is one thing, Malik. Results are another," Greg shot back, a smug smile on his face. "I just don't want you to embarrass yourself in front of the board. We wouldn't want that, would we?" Malik clenched his fists under the table, fighting the urge to lash out. He could feel the eyes of his colleagues on him, some filled with sympathy, others with the familiar discomfort of witnessing bullying. It was a painful reminder of the isolation he had felt for so long. But deep down, he knew he had to push through. He had come too far to let Greg's words derail him now. After the meeting, Malik sought refuge in the break room, pouring himself a cup of coffee to steady his nerves. Sarah followed him in, concern etched across her face. "That was brutal, Malik. Are you okay?" "I will be," he said, trying to sound more resolute than he felt. "I just need to focus on the upcoming project presentation. If I can nail that, maybe it will help me rise above all this." "Absolutely," Sarah encouraged. "Let's work together on your presentation. You have the skills, you just need to trust yourself." As they collaborated over the next few days, Malik found solace in their late-night study sessions. With Sarah's help, he refined his ideas, and they bounced concepts off each other, crafting a presentation he hoped would impress the higher-ups. Each late night brought him closer to feeling prepared, but the presence of Greg loomed like a dark cloud. The day of the presentation arrived, and Malik felt a mixture of excitement and dread. He stood in front of the boardroom, his palms sweating as he faced the panel. His heart raced, but he took a deep breath, reminding himself of the countless hours he had spent preparing. "Good morning, everyone," Malik began, his voice steadying as he scanned the room. He could see a few familiar faces from his team, nodding encouragingly. "Today, I'll be presenting my findings on our recent project, highlighting the key strategies that can propel our company forward." As he moved through his presentation, Malik spoke with passion and clarity, showcasing the hard work he had put in. He could see the board members leaning in, engaged with his ideas. The more he spoke, the more he felt the weight of Greg's negativity lift off his shoulders, replaced by a growing sense of empowerment. But just as he finished, Greg burst into the room, striding in with an air of arrogance. "I hope you're not boring them with this fluff, Malik," he interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. Malik's heart raced again, but he didn't allow Greg to derail him. "Actually, Greg, they seem quite interested in the progress we've made," Malik countered, maintaining eye contact with the board members. Greg's expression darkened, and he leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "Well, let's not get carried away. It's easy to talk a big game, but results matter, right? I hope you're ready to deliver, Malik." The tension in the room crackled as Malik felt the weight of Greg's contempt. But this time he stood firm. "I am ready, Greg, and I have the results to back it up." As he concluded his presentation, Malik received nods of approval from the board members, who began to discuss his insights. But Greg's jealousy was palpable, and Malik could sense a confrontation brewing. The moment the meeting ended, Greg stormed out, his face a mask of fury. "Just you wait, Malik," he hissed under his breath, storming past him. Malik's heart pounded, but he felt more resolved than ever. He wouldn't let Greg's hatred define him any longer. This was his moment, and he was ready to seize it with both hands. Malik sat at his desk, the faint hum of the office becoming a backdrop to the racing thoughts in his mind. The day of the management interview loomed ahead, and though he had prepared meticulously, a sense of dread clung to him like a shadow. He had fought hard to reach this point, overcoming Greg's relentless bullying and the insidious whispers that echoed through the halls. Yet, as he shuffled through his notes, his heart sank at the thought of Greg's potential sabotage. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah's voice broke through his reverie. She approached his desk, her eyes filled with an encouraging light. She had been a constant source of support, her unwavering belief in his capabilities igniting a flicker of hope in his chest. "I think so," Malik replied, forcing a smile. "But I can't shake the feeling that Greg is going to pull something. He's been acting so paranoid since the news broke about the restructuring." Sarah crossed her arms, concern etched on her brow. "He might try, but you've got the skills and the testimonials. You've worked hard for this. Don't let his toxicity get to you." Malik nodded, grateful for her reassurance. The two had spent countless nights gathering evidence, compiling testimonials from colleagues who had witnessed Greg's bullying firsthand. They had meticulously documented every slight, every undermining remark, standing as a testament to Malik's character and professional integrity. Yet, no amount of preparation could completely quell his anxiety. As the clock ticked closer to the interview time, Malik felt the weight of anticipation mixed with a tight knot of unease in his stomach. He stood up, smoothing down his shirt, trying to appear composed. But just as he was about to leave for the interview room, he caught sight of Greg lurking near the break room, his expression a mask of feigned innocence. "Malik, my boy," Greg's voice boomed, dripping with sarcasm. "I hope you're not planning to embarrass yourself in front of the panel today." The way he pronounced embarrass made it sound as if it were a personal vendetta, a challenge thrown down in front of their peers. Malik felt the heat rise to his cheeks but forced himself to maintain eye contact. "I'm ready, Greg. Unlike some people, I take this seriously." He allowed a hint of defiance to seep into his tone. Greg stepped closer, a mocking smile dancing on his lips. "Just remember, reputation is everything in this business. And what do you think people will say when they hear about your shortcomings?" Malik's stomach twisted at the implications. He was well aware of the whispers that circulated around the office, but he refused to let Greg's intimidation tactics shake him. "I'll let my work speak for itself," he said firmly, trying to project confidence even as doubt gnawed at him. "Good luck with that," Greg sneered, before turning on his heel and striding away, leaving Malik feeling even more unsettled. As he approached the interview room, Malik could feel his heart thundering in his chest. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the support he had from Sarah and the colleagues who believed in him. He pushed the door open, stepping into the room with a mix of determination and trepidation. The panel of executives sat before him, their expressions neutral but attentive. Malik took a seat, smoothing his palms against his trousers to steady his trembling hands. "Thank you for having me," he began, his voice steady despite the fluttering anxiety in his stomach. As the interview progressed, Malik spoke passionately about his projects and the company's future. He felt himself gaining momentum, his earlier fears dissipating with each confident word. The panel nodded, and he could see their interest peaking. But deep within, a shadow of doubt lingered. Would they see past the rumors Greg had sown? "Malik, can you address the challenges you've faced in your current role?" one of the executives asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. Malik hesitated, a flicker of conflict crossing his mind. Should he air the dirty laundry of his workplace? But then he remembered Sarah's words, the importance of standing up against the toxic environment. "I believe every challenge is an opportunity for growth," he began, choosing his words carefully. "I've faced obstacles, particularly in the form of management styles that don't foster collaboration. However, I've learned to adapt and innovate in my approach, focusing on building a supportive team dynamic." The executives listened intently, and for the first time, Malik felt a sense of empowerment wash over him. He was not just the victim of bullying. He was resilient, capable of rising above it. The interview continued, and Malik's confidence soared as he showcased his vision for the company, feeling more like a leader with each passing moment. Meanwhile, outside the interview room, Sarah paced anxiously, her fingers tapping against her phone. She had sent out the testimonials they had compiled, knowing that Greg would be lurking somewhere, hoping to sabotage Malik's chances. "Come on, Malik," she whispered under her breath. "You've got this." Just then, she caught sight of Greg, who was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, an expression of schadenfreude etched across his face. "How's our little star doing?" he taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. "I hope he doesn't embarrass himself in there. Why don't you go back to your desk, Greg?" Sarah shot back, her eyes narrowing. "You've done enough damage already." Greg chuckled, a sinister glimmer in his eyes. "Damage? I'm just making sure everyone knows the real Malik. You know, the one who can't handle pressure." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Let's see if he can charm the panel as much as he charms you." Sarah felt a surge of anger but forced herself to stay calm, knowing that engaging with Greg would only give him more power. "You won't win this one, Greg," she replied, her voice steady. "Not this time." Back in the interview room, Malik concluded his presentation, the panel's expressions revealing a mix of admiration and contemplation. "Thank you for your insights, Malik. We will be in touch," one of the executives said, and Malik felt a wave of relief wash over him. As he exited the room, the weight of the interview lifted from his shoulders. But just as he stepped out, he overheard a hushed conversation between two colleagues discussing the rumors Greg had spread. "Did you hear about Malik? Apparently, he's not fit for a management role because he can't handle stress," one of them said, and Malik felt his heart sink again. He had fought so hard, and yet the specter of Greg loomed larger than ever. Malik clenched his fists, a surge of determination igniting within him. He had to confront this once and for all. With Sarah by his side, they would gather the evidence and stand against the toxicity that had plagued their workplace for too long. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Malik's apartment, casting striped shadows across his bedroom floor. He sat on the edge of his bed, heart racing as he stared at the email notification on his phone. The subject line read, "Management position offer." He had worked hard for this moment, enduring Greg's relentless bullying, yet the excitement felt muted. Malik opened the email, scanning the words that confirmed what he had hoped for. He had been offered the position. But just as quickly as the thrill surged within him, it was overshadowed by a chilling thought. Greg would not take this lightly. Malik's mind raced back to the last confrontation, the venomous words Greg had hurled at him, the thinly veiled threats disguised as concern. Greg had made it clear that he would do anything to protect his own position, and now, with Malik stepping into a role of authority, the stakes had never been higher. In that moment, a notification chimed in, breaking his thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey, I heard about the offer. Let's celebrate later." Malik smiled faintly, yet his apprehension lingered. He typed back a quick acknowledgement, then set his phone down, feeling the weight of the decision that loomed ahead. As hours passed, Malik found himself pacing the small living room, replaying every interaction with Greg in his mind. The bullying had been relentless, the comments so carefully crafted to undermine him. Malik recalled the meeting where Greg had mocked his ideas, the laughter of their colleagues ringing in his ears like a haunting echo. He could still feel the sting of those moments, and now, as he stood on the precipice of a new chapter, he wondered if he had the strength to face Greg in a different light. His phone buzzed again, this time with a call. "Malik? It's Sarah." Her voice crackled through the speaker, unmistakably excited. "I just got off the phone with Lisa from HR. She said your offer is official. You have to accept it." Taking a breath, Malik replied, "Yeah, I know. I'm really torn, though. Greg isn't going to let this go easily. He's already threatened me before." "Listen." Sarah's tone shifted to one of seriousness. "You can't let him intimidate you. This is your chance to turn everything around. You deserve this role, and it's time to show everyone, including Greg, what you're capable of." Malik nodded even though she couldn't see him. Her words struck a chord, igniting a flicker of determination within him. What if he spreads lies about me? What if he tries to sabotage my reputation? He's good at that. Then we gather evidence. We have your colleagues who can back you up, Sarah asserted. You're not alone in this. Remember how we talked about getting testimonials? It's time to put that plan into action. Malik felt a surge of gratitude wash over him. You're right. I can't let fear dictate my choices. I'll accept the offer. Good. I'll be with you every step of the way. We'll make him pay for everything he's done, Sarah promised, her voice filled with resolve. After hanging up, Malik took a moment to reflect. He had been fighting an uphill battle for too long. The memories of Greg's taunts flashed before him, but now they felt different. Less like chains weighing him down and more like fuel for his fire. He opened the email again and, with a steadier hand, clicked on the acceptance button. As he hit send, a sense of liberation washed over him, yet it was quickly interrupted by the harsh reality of what lay ahead. The confrontation with Greg would be inevitable. Malik had no illusions about that. He would need to prepare himself both mentally and emotionally for the storm that was about to break. Later that evening, Malik met Sarah at a small cafe, a favored spot where the baristas knew their names. The atmosphere was buzzing with chatter, and as Malik entered, he spotted Sarah waving him over with an enthusiastic grin. "I ordered you a coffee. You'll need the energy," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Thanks," Malik replied, taking a seat across from her. "I accepted the position." "Fantastic. Now we need to strategize," Sarah said, leaning forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What's your plan for when you face Greg?" Malik sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I think I need to confront him directly. He's going to try to undermine me, and I can't let him get away with it. I want to address the bullying head-on." Sarah nodded, a serious look on her face. "That's a strong move, but you know he'll retaliate. You have to be prepared for the worst." "Yeah," Malik replied, a knot forming in his stomach. "He might spread rumors or try to get people on his side. He's good at making himself look like the victim." "Then we need to make sure that everyone knows the truth," Sarah said, eyes blazing with determination. "We can gather support beforehand. You need allies in this fight." Malik felt a surge of hope. "You're right. I'll talk to a few colleagues who've seen what he's done. If I can get them to stand with me, it might make a difference." "Exactly. And we'll document everything," Sarah added, her enthusiasm infectious. "You're not just walking into this as the new boss. You're walking in as someone who's been wronged. That carries weight." They spent the next hour brainstorming, discussing potential allies who could vouch for Malik's character and experience. With each idea exchanged, Malik's confidence began to grow. He felt a sense of camaraderie with Sarah, a bond forged in the shared struggle against the toxic environment Greg had created. As they wrapped up their meeting, Malik glanced at the clock. "I should probably head home. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." "Definitely. Just remember, you're not alone in this," Sarah reminded him, a reassuring smile on her face. Driving home, Malik felt a mix of apprehension and anticipation. He was stepping into a new role, one that he had long desired, but the specter of Greg loomed large. The reality of confronting his former tormentor was daunting, yet there was a flicker of excitement within him. Tomorrow would be the day he would reclaim his power. As he lay in bed that night, Malik pondered the journey ahead. He had faced countless challenges, but this was different. He was no longer just a victim of Greg's bullying. He was about to become the catalyst for change. Malik closed his eyes, envisioning the confrontation, mentally rehearsing what he would say. He would not shy away. He would stand firm, not just for himself but for all those who had been silenced by fear. With that thought anchoring him, he drifted into a restless sleep, ready to face whatever the new day would bring. Malik sat at his new desk, the morning sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the sleek corporate space that felt both familiar and foreign. Today was the first day of a new chapter in his life, a chapter he had fought hard to write. He could still feel the weight of the past pressing against him. The memories of Greg's sneering remarks and condescending tones echoed in his mind. Yet, there was a flicker of hope and determination igniting within him. He straightened his tie, rehearsed his opening lines in his mind, and prepared to face the man who had so long made his working life a nightmare. The clock ticked steadily, counting down to the moment when he would call the meeting that would change everything. As the hour approached, Malik felt a rush of adrenaline. He knew he had the evidence to confront Greg, but the stakes were high. Would his colleagues support him, or would they linger in the shadows, afraid of the repercussions? He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the lessons he had learned through this tumultuous journey: courage, integrity, and the importance of standing tall against injustice. When the time came, Malik gathered his courage and summoned Greg into the conference room. As Greg walked in, his expression was one of confusion, quickly morphing into disbelief as he processed the scene before him. The room was filled with their colleagues, all eyes fixed on Malik, who stood at the head of the table, exuding a calm authority that seemed almost surreal given the circumstances. "Thank you for coming," Everyone, Malik began, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. I wanted to address some important matters regarding our team and the direction we're headed. He glanced at Greg, whose face was a mixture of shock and irritation. As you all know, there have been some challenges in our workplace environment, particularly concerning respect and professionalism. Greg, unable to contain himself, interjected, "What challenges? Malik, you're new here. You don't understand how things work." His tone was dismissive, but Malik was prepared for this. He met Greg's gaze with unwavering confidence. "I understand more than you think, Greg," Malik replied, his voice firm. "For too long, I have witnessed behaviors that undermine our team's cohesion and morale. This is not just about me. This is about all of us." He gestured around the room, making eye contact with several colleagues who nodded in silent agreement. "Really? Are you going to lecture us now?" Greg scoffed, his bravado cracking a little under Malik's steady demeanor. "You think just because you've got a title now you can come in here and dictate how we should act?" Malik took a deep breath, feeling the air crackle with tension. "This isn't about the title, Greg. It's about ensuring that every member of this team feels valued and respected. I have evidence of inappropriate behavior that I believe needs to be addressed." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. "I have gathered testimonials from colleagues who have witnessed your bullying and racism. Sarah helped me compile this information." At the mention of Sarah's name, a murmur rippled through the room. Malik could see mixed expressions of support and concern on his colleagues' faces, but he pressed on, knowing he had to stand his ground. "I want to share these testimonials with everyone here today. It's time we create an environment where everyone is treated with dignity." With a nod to Sarah, who was seated at the back of the room, Malik activated the projector. The screen illuminated with quotes and statements from their co-workers, detailing Greg's belittling remarks and discriminatory behavior. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as the testimonials rolled across the screen, revealing the toxic culture that had festered under Greg's leadership. As the last statement faded away, Malik turned to Greg, whose expression had gone from disbelief to a simmering rage. "You can't possibly think this is acceptable behavior in a professional setting," Malik continued. "I refuse to let this continue. Not for me, not for anyone else in this room." Greg's face flushed with anger. "This is absurd. You're going to regret this, Malik. You think you can just come in here and turn everyone against me? I built this team. By tearing people down?" Malik countered, his voice rising slightly. "Your so-called leadership has only created fear and hostility. I'm here to change that." The tension in the room was palpable, and Malik could see some of his colleagues shifting uncomfortably in their seats, caught in the crossfire of the escalating confrontation. But there were others, like Sarah, who watched with pride and admiration for Malik's bravery. "Enough," Malik declared, raising his hand to silence Greg. "This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about the culture we foster here. I'm taking a stand, and I hope others will join me in advocating for a healthier, more inclusive workplace." Greg's bravado wavered as he realized the tide had turned. The collective support from their colleagues was undeniable. "You think this will end well for you?" he spat, his voice dripping with malice. "I will make sure you regret this mistake." Malik felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. "You're right, Greg. I'm sure you will try, but I won't back down. Not anymore." He glanced at their colleagues, whose expressions were now resolute. "I am committed to ensuring that this team thrives on respect, collaboration, and integrity." Then the door swung open abruptly, and the HR manager, Susan, stepped in, drawn by the commotion. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her eyes darting between Malik and Greg. Malik seized the opportunity. "Susan, I think it's time for a serious conversation about Greg's behavior and the culture he has fostered within this team. I have evidence of repeated misconduct that undermines our work environment." Greg's face turned a shade paler as Susan raised an eyebrow, taking in the situation. She glanced at the screen displaying the testimonials before meeting Malik's gaze. "I'll need to see that information, Malik. This is serious." Malik nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. Of course, I'll send it to you right away. He turned back to Greg, who was now visibly shaken. I believe it's time for you to leave, Greg. Your actions have consequences, and I won't allow this kind of behavior to continue. In that moment, the weight of his journey bore down on Malik, but instead of feeling crushed, he felt liberated. Greg's career crumbled right before his eyes, and Malik knew he had taken the first, crucial step toward transforming not just his own life, but the lives of countless others who had suffered in silence. With a heavy heart, Greg stood, the realization of his downfall dawning on him. You'll regret this, Malik, he muttered under his breath as he exited the room, the door slamming shut behind him. As the silence settled in, Malik turned to his team, who now looked at him with a mixture of respect and admiration. Thank you for standing with me, he said, his voice steady. This is just the beginning. Together, we will create a workplace where everyone feels safe and respected. The room erupted in applause, and Malik felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. His journey had been arduous, but in this moment, surrounded by colleagues who believed in him, he felt empowered. The fight had not been in vain. He had triumphed over adversity, and it was a victory worth celebrating. As he glanced around the room, Malik understood that true strength lies not merely in holding a title but in the courage to stand up for what is right. He had reclaimed his narrative, and in doing so, he had ignited a spark of hope for others who might still be facing their own battles. The future looked brighter, and he was ready to lead with integrity and grace, determined to foster a culture of respect and resilience within the walls of their corporate firm. If you like the content, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and share it with your friends. Your comment is essential for the growth of the channel. And look at this video that appears on the screen. See you soon.